it's not a fad.
Mm-hmm.
It's not the flavor of the day sort of thing. The work that we're doing is coming from the World Health Organization.
Hello, welcome to Miller-Dwan Foundation's Force for Good podcast. I'm Traci Marciniak, the president of Miller-Dwan Foundation. So we're doing a little turn the tables switcheroo today. Rick Gertsema, who is Miller-Dwan Foundation's senior mental health advisor and the usual host for the Force for Good podcast, is actually in the hot seat and will be interviewed today. I'm really excited to be able to do this because, after the last few podcasts, people are really interested in you as a person and your career and what has brought you to this point with Miller-Dwan Foundation in our journey to solve the mental health crisis. So I know you and I and the team have talked a lot about your work history, and I know you've mentioned that, you have a 40-year career in behavioral health.
Yep.
So kind of walk us through how that started. What is your past experience?
So my career in behavioral health actually started in 1982. I started my career at Minnesota Security Hospital in St. Peter, Minnesota, and I worked with mentally ill and dangerous adults. And at Security Hospital, I was there about 12 and a half years, and all that work was with adults. And then I went to an open psychiatric unit, which in the state hospital, so not not nearly as impaired people. And it was at that point that I really started thinking about, I've been drawn to working with kids probably from the very beginning. I don't know that I believed I had enough confidence or enough skill to work with kids. And so I ended up going to the Leo Hoffman Center, where I worked with kids who had sexual acting out. I did that work for a while. And then we opened up a mental health center. So we had a mental health center. And at that point, I started doing home-based work. So I was a home-based therapist. I did that work for a number of years and was also the on-call person for the St. Peter Hospital Emergency Department. So I did emergency room at that point. I also did some work in residential treatment, and then ultimately was in private practice for a year, and then 26 years ago moved to Duluth. And I was at the Hermantown Clinic, where I specialized in working with teenage boys primarily. Did a lot of work with ADHD, oppositional behaviors, the adoption network. I was one of the first people trained in the adoption network for the state of Minnesota, and a lot of work with foster homes. And then ultimately ended up as the clinical supervisor for Amber Wing, which we are still heavily involved.
Right, and how we actually met one another.
Exactly. Probably 15 years ago, right?
Yep.
So Amber Wing, where I was actually a therapist first, and then moved into a clinical supervisor role, and ultimately ended up as manager for all of outpatient behavioral health in the East region for Essentia Health, which meant that I had clinics from Duluth to Hermantown, Proctor, Superior, Brainerd, and I think that's probably it, until I came to the foundation about a year and a half ago.
Wow, that is quite a history, and I have to imagine I know it hasn't always been easy. You've worked with a lot of kids and adults who've had some really serious illness. So let me ask you, can you identify a moment or a set of experiences in your past that made you decide that this is the path you wanted to take, that you wanted to be a therapist to help people?
It's a really good question. And somehow I think I have known since I was a kid that I wanted to help people. I'm drawn to really help. One of the most, a pivotal point really for me was when I was working at the open hospital, state hospital. And there were 3 patients that I worked with who all had died by suicide.
Mm.
And after the 3rd person had died by suicide was when it was a deciding point for me that even though it was incredibly painful, I knew that it just couldn't get any worse than that. And everybody deserves dignity, regardless of circumstance. And so I think it was really a solid deciding point for me that I really am I'm in the right place.
Well, obviously you are. I know based on our conversations, the number of lives you've touched over the years in a clinical sense is countless. I've heard the stories of people coming up to you and talking about how you really transformed their life. So I hope that you feel a good sense of joy around that, because not everyone gets to say that.
It's really, it's flattering, frankly, that I can now see some really incredible young men who I was able to meet maybe when they are 9 or 10 years old, or meet them as teenagers at that really difficult time in their life, and see them all these years later as flourishing, and the smile, to see the smiles and the joy in their eyes when they see me, or I'll see them and call them by name as an example. I can't believe you still remember me. and it's, for whatever reason, it's the way my brain works, which can be kind of frightening sometimes. But
I've noticed.
thank you. What happens is that when I see somebody that I did spend therapy time with, it's like it all downloads, and I see them, and I remember. Sometimes I remember brothers and sisters' names, or I can remember parents' names, and that visual, and meeting them and seeing the smile, because it's the smile I don't forget.
Right.
And of course there were many times that there were tears, and ultimately it was, let's just get to the smile again, because I know it's in there. And in all the years I worked with kids, I used to say, there's no such thing as ugly eyes. And there's no such thing as a bad kid. There are really bad circumstances. There are things that are so unfair, and we need to move forward. It's a matter of, we can do this together. Now let's figure out how we do this together, and let's go. Let's get back on the road again.
Yeah. It's amazing. So, thinking about all of that clinical experience, those connections you made with patients over the years, what was it about the Miller-Dwan Foundation and the vision of solving the mental health crisis that prompted you to come and join us on that journey?
Well, first of all, I had no idea that all of the incredible things that have happened in the last year and a half could possibly happen. I think one of the things, the primary draw for me to the Miller-Dwan Foundation really is the team. To be able to work with some really incredible people who really believed that we could have an impact, and we could be a part of a solution for work that I've been doing for decades, and thinking, I wonder what that could even possibly look like. And then we quickly got to this position of, why not? We can do that. Let's give it a shot. And the support and the why not, and Rick, you've got this. I mean, the ability of a team to work so well, and to raise one another up so that we're all at our best, and we do well in that environment. And we also have a lot of fun,
Right.
which humor is huge. It's a huge part of my life. I love I love laughing. I love seeing people laugh. It's part of the reason that I wear goofy socks, because they're colorful. They're fun. It's yeah, let's take a look at this. Or, Rick, what socks do you have on today? And I think the authenticity of the foundation and the team at the foundation is another. I remember you asking me or somebody asking when I did the interview, what does it feel like to be interviewing for a job when you're 61? I thought, well, actually, it's kind of fun, right? It was just, oh, that's
Right.
great. Yeah.
Probably didn't feel like an interview.
No, it didn't feel like an
Yeah.
interview. It felt like an arrival point. It felt like I was intentionally taking a next step that truly was meant to happen. And we've said this several times at the foundation, the right person in the right seat
Right.
at the right time. And that's what that felt like.
I would agree. And, bringing you onto the team, it was almost like a miracle because you were the piece that was missing in our efforts to be able to really tackle this crisis. So, we've talked about PM Plus or Problem Management Plus in past podcasts. So thinking about all of your clinical history, what is it about PM Plus that you think makes it different and that it will actually transform care in the future?
Well, to use your quote, there is no way that we can hire ourselves out of a crisis that was already there before the pandemic, and the pandemic just exacerbated the entire crisis, sort of blew the lid off of everything, frankly. And so we can't hire. And what I learned in working and contacting the World Health Organization is that there really is validity to creating a way in which lay people, non-specialized people, if they're trained correctly and supervised by a licensed professional, they, non-specialists, can really deliver care and be effective. And PM Plus it's vetted in other countries. It has its own manual, which is also remarkable. There's check sheets. There's fidelity to a model, and over all the years that I've been in mental health, what I know is that there's always a tendency to drift.
Right.
So I think I'll do this with this person. I think I'll do that with this person. And in reality, if there's a standardized way in which care can be delivered and supervised, we can create this whole other workforce, and we can actually get rid of one of the major barriers to care, which is having people boots on the ground in communities, in places like the Y or at ACO or at any location. So knowing that we can grow a workforce that can then start reaching people immediately and not have to be on a wait list, and hopefully what we're doing is creating something that can avoid people getting to a point of crisis. Because that's ultimately, I believe, is a large part of what happens. People try and they try and they try and they can't get there, and not judgmentally of professional people, because that's not the case at all. There just are not enough providers.
Right.
So let's grow it. Let's multiply it. And if it can work in New York City, where this whole pilot started,
Yep.
it definitely can work in the Twin Ports.
Yeah, absolutely. And really what you're talking about is breaking down the barriers that have existed for so long that have really caused the crisis to continue to get larger. So really, in these efforts, we will be able to actually transform how people can access care, which has been an issue. And again, no judgment on the part of providers. It's just the need is so great that there just is not enough. So Rick, how do you think Well, okay, from Rick as a human being and possibly a therapist, what does it feel like to be really leaning into something that could create such a powerful and monumental change for people?
How does it feel? First and foremost, it's an incredible privilege, and I don't underestimate really the privileged position that I'm in, and that's probably one of the things that I like to think about the least, because number one, I'm an incredibly emotional human being, and I don't know that I don't know that a whole lot of people know that about me. I'm extremely sensitive. I'm emotional, and I process my feelings out loud. As I now all the foundation team fully recognizes, because I talk a lot, right? And to be in a position after 40 plus years of working in mental health and understanding the sheer magnitude of what we're doing in the Twin Ports, and to be one small part of that, people don't get to do what I do.
Right.
They don't get to be in a position of having all of these years and all of this experience and be surrounded by support every single day and saying, oh, okay, we'll give that a shot. Or who's going to contact Senator Klobuchar's office? Or who's going to call the mayor? Or who's going to call Zach Williams? It's like, well, I don't know. I guess I'll do that.
Why not?
I'll do it, right? So mostly I think privilege. I'm a big mindfulness person as well, and I do mindfulness every morning, and I think this adventure, this transformative process we're in, really helps remind me that I need to stay in the moment. And it's sort of this sort of major life lesson. There's no reason to live life in a rearview mirror, right?
Right.
What's in the past is in the past. What's in the future, if anybody would have told me that I would have had this experience a year and a half ago, I couldn't conceptualize this. And so I think, oh, here's where we are today. I'm not really sure where we're going to be in a year, and I don't need to know.
Right.
Because the sheer joy of the work and the promise of what we're doing and the lives that we can impact. Early in my career, I thought, after I've been doing my work for a while, it would be really nice to be able to be a mentor or meet younger therapists and sort of help them navigate and move through. And this is so much bigger in terms of reaching people and multiplying help. And it's an incredible privilege. I don't know privilege doesn't even seem like the right word, frankly.
Well, you're in the right place for sure. And I think that your values align nicely with the Miller-Dwan Foundation's values and the team's values. So maybe you want to share with people what it is you value as far as, the work that you do, the people that you work with, the people that you help through this.
The value?
Yeah. So, thinking about, our value of compassion or our value of making sure when we put something out there that is for patients to help people, it's really gold standard.
Correct.
So talk about how that relates to you as a person and as a therapist.
So full disclosure, I'm an incredible perfectionist. and I don't like to do things halfway.
Yeah.
It needs to be I look for the best of the best, and especially now. I don't want mediocre, and I don't know that I've ever really liked mediocre. To me, you're either in and you give 100%. Otherwise, why do it?
Right.
And being surrounded with people who in every single day are saying exactly the same thing. We don't do mediocre. We do 100%. We are willing to be bold and strong and be a team. None of us at the foundation really are individuals. It is group. It's a team. It's a community. It's how do we fit in? How do we change, help Duluth change or Superior change or the larger Minnesota change? It's a commitment to 100%.
So, how do you see mental health care changing over the next 5 years? And how will it impact the overall health of the population?
I would hope that with the addition of, for lack of better language, scaled mental health. So PM Plus, there's another program called EASE, EASE, which is developed by the World Health Organization. I believe the future of mental health is scalable mental health, where we can create a workforce, create people who can do the work so that in my role as a therapist, I know that there's other resources, and the people who do come to see me in a professional capacity, they really are getting the right level of care at the right time, which was all, that's part of Amber Wing, that's been part of really a philosophy all along, is we really need to get people what they need when they need it so that it doesn't get to full-blown crisis.
Right.
And I think the experience in New York City with Recoup New York, I think they're finding exactly the same thing. We can expand a workforce so that out of passion and compassion, we really can reach people and get the biggest effect on the largest part of the population that really is either getting nothing,
Right.
which is the bottom of a World Health Organization pyramid, the people who get nothing, or the people who get little to no support.
Yeah. So this kind of ties in. So what do you say, or what's your response to like the naysayers or the doubters out there who think that any sort of form of mental health care or support needs to come from a licensed professional?
I think that's a point of education. I think it's teaching people that this just isn't. It's not a fad. It's not the flavor of the day sort of thing. The work that we're doing is coming from the World Health Organization. And say what anybody wants to say about the World Health Organization. What we know is that they're vetted,
Right.
and they're manualized, and their fidelity. So I would say, much like we've done in the last year and a half, lean in a little bit. Just be a little bit curious about what this really might be.
Right.
Go online. PM Plus, Problem Management Plus. If you Google it, you'll find the manual. You'll find a manual for Group PM Plus. It's all there.
Yep.
It's not anything magical. It's people who are helping people manage stress, manage problems, get going, keep moving, find a support system, and get people connected, because we're human beings. It's all about relationships. And that's what drives the world. It's relationships.
Yes.
And so just creating the relationship, and we talk about that in PM Plus all the time. The most important part of PM Plus is the relationship, is really
Right.
being present with somebody. And that's powerful.
Okay. So I have one last question. And I know you're not going to like this so much.
Uh-oh.
So without being modest, which I know you are, because when you joined us, I referenced your experience and that you're really the expert we needed. And you didn't necessarily believe me when I said that. But what is it that you think you have as an individual that relates to the work that we're doing to eliminate the mental health crisis that's going to make it happen?
I think I shy away from the word expert. And I know as a human being, there is nobody more committed. I just think it would be, frankly, impossible. I am so in it to make an impact, and I feel it. I live. My wife would say that I always trust Rick's sense of intuition. Mm-hmm. Your sense of intuition is stellar. I think that's true. I do know that I have that quality. I am so passionate about what I do. And I'm so passionate about making a difference. It drives my very existence. It's the core of who I am. And I remember my kindergarten teacher saying, "Someday you're going to be a counselor, Rick. That's what you're going to be." And I got through grad school, and she happened to be driving by my mom's house. Uh-huh. And she rolled down her window and said, "Hey, Rick, told you so." She rolled up her window and drove away.
That is a fantastic story.
And that summarizes the whole thing.
Yep.
Yeah.
She was spot on.
She really was.
Well, Rick, thank you. Thank you for sharing some more personal information about yourself and your path to becoming the mental health advisor for the Miller-Dwan Foundation. We are grateful that you are with us. We're going to make a difference, and a large part is because of your experience and your passion.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
And thank you for joining us for this episode of The Force for Good. Please go to your socials and give us a like, subscribe, and join us for the next one.